Throughout history, people have made amazing accomplishments that define themselves. Now, it's our turn to tell those accomplishments, to tell his story, her story, their story, and even your story. With Mike Wexler.
Welcome to Your Story, guys. We are here with another episode. Thank you guys so much for doing your part into tuning in, whether you're watching online over here on YouTube or if you're listening on any audio platform that you can find your podcast. I appreciate you. You know, I know a lot of these episodes are kind of virtual, but we're kind of living in crazy times right now, which, you know, it's understandable. We're trying to be safe. We're trying to be healthy during these times. I have a very special guest here. Okay. So I saw this gentleman at BXS Wrestling not too long ago, back in, I want to say it was December, early December, in Baldwin Park, where he was the voice of violence. I also had the pleasure of seeing him in action when it comes to both volumes of LA Fights over in GCW. But not only that, as a college student, and not only that, but just a revolutionary when it comes to the announcing and broadcasting game. So without further ado, let me introduce you to the one, the only Jordan Cassel. How are you, my friend?
My friend, I'm excellent with an introduction like that. I mean, I don't know how I couldn't be. I mean, I don't know about revolutionary. I don't know about all that, but I greatly appreciate you having me on here. This is awesome. I'm really looking forward to it.
Hey, I appreciate you taking the time. You know, we're living in, as we mentioned before we went on the air, we're living in some crazy times right now. I understand that from the conversation we had before we went on the air that you're still on campus as a college student. In my situation, it's like, yeah, we can still be on campus, but we're all basically doing virtually. Back again.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird times, man. And I'll tell you what, like, this semester is strange because it's my first semester back or was my first semester. It's done now, which is strange. But this past semester, fall semester of my junior year was my first semester back on campus after a year and a half, because I went home, obviously, 2020, end of my freshman year when COVID first hit. And then I did all of last year remote here from Massachusetts. So to be back is very strange, but very rewarding and very gratifying finally at the same time. And it's provided, as you've attested to and alluded to, some really cool opportunities in wrestling. And the timing of that has been really, really excellent. I watched Allie Catch, good friend of mine, her hype package for her and Ruby Soho's match at Hammerstein dropped tonight, the night of this being recorded. Sorry to date this from whenever it's eventually released, but that dropped tonight. I was watching that, and sort of the whole theme of that was like, timing is everything. And even if something seems so kind of frustrating and it seems like kind of the world is crumbling around you and you lose an opportunity, or you feel like you're so close to an opportunity and it falls away, if something's meant to be, the universe will give it to you. And I really feel like the timing of kind of coming back to California and starting school up again, in accordance with sort of the opportunities I've gotten on the West Coast through wrestling, it just couldn't have been better. So it's been a fun few months for sure.
Oh yeah, I mean, you know, when it comes to this past year, I mean, I think 2021 was the year that it was like, you know, make it the best that you can. You know, we had a lot of things open up in 2021, and we had some sort of normalcy when it came to 2021.
Definitely more so than 2020, for sure.
Yeah. So when we were talking about 2021, like, what was the highlight for you in 2021?
Oh man, I mean, it's a very broad thing. It's not necessarily just one moment or one booking or one show or whatever it is. There were a lot for sure, but I'd say the highlight was really kind of getting my, it's strange in the sense to say, wrestling career going. Because as strange as it can kind of seem, having been lucky enough to do so much in the last 6 months, whatever it's been. It only started last year. It was August of 2021 that I was lucky enough to do commentary for the pre-show of VXS, as you mentioned, Party All the Time that was, which was one of their last shows in Jersey before their recent collaboration with No Peace a couple weeks back. been talking with Isaac, the head honcho over there for a while. Kind of gained a friendship and a rapport with him over 2020, and kind of mentioned like, hey, I've always been interested in doing this. I love what you guys are doing. If there's an opportunity, and it just kind of fell into place, and that got the ball rolling for more VXS, for LA Fights, as you mentioned, and for even more that we have coming up. And so to finally do that and finally kind of get that ball rolling was really, really cool. Because it's something that I've wanted to do since I was, like 9 years old. I started watching wrestling end of 2009, September of 2009, August, September 2009-ish. And like pretty much immediately I was like, this is like, I want to be involved in this, and I want to be on the microphone doing commentary, ring announcing, whatever it is. And of course, like how many, 8, 9-year-olds have that kind of dream of doing something like that? But it's, I mean, for better or worse, I've stuck with it. And through middle school and through high school and into college, I've always been the wrestling kid, and been this major fan, and still am. I mean, all you have to do is take one look at my Twitter and see my tweets about Orange Cassidy or Hook, and see that fandom has not gone away. But no, I mean, it's everything I've ever dreamed of and more, as sort of corny and cliche as it might sound. So I guess that's my very long-winded way of saying finally getting that ball rolling and finally making that happen and setting that into motion is without a shadow of a doubt the highlight of this year.
Oh yeah, I mean, to see what you have come from your beginnings and now, I mean, you're still making huge impacts in the business.
Sure.
But one of those huge impacts I do want to talk about too is, of course, how could we forget VXS? Like the way that, as the voice of violence, or if you're doing anything production wise, I mean, you're still making a huge impact for that company. And what have you done for the East Coast? And of course, what you've done for over here in California? Does it seem like surreal to you that you're doing this, still living the dream?
Oh, 100%. I mean, again, it's something that I have sort of dreamed of and envisioned for so long. I mean, I was at talking about VXS specifically, I was at the first VXS show just as a fan that was, I should know this, being that was, I want to say September of 2020. And I saw that they had announced Nick Gage versus JTG. And for me, that was just like the ultimate dream match of like this guy and Nick Gage, who was like this like tough as nails, like as legit and as real as they come, like straight tough dude. And then JTG, who kind of made a career playing like a sort of cartoony over the top version of that, like a caricature almost of that street tough guy, but has still become quite a formidable wrestler in his own right. On the indies, of course, in the wake of Shad's passing. That match actually did not happen at that show. You can talk to Isaac. You can talk to anyone who was involved with that first show. Again, I drove from Massachusetts to Jersey, which is a 4-hour drive for that show. I believe it was supposed to get started at around 4 or 5 p.m. and didn't get started until around 8 or 9. Oh, wow. It was supposed to take place at an outdoor setting, again, this kind of being more in the thick of COVID, in a field, I believe, and it ended up taking place at an abandoned UFC dojo next to an abandoned Chinese buffet restaurant. There was all sorts of issues with someone called the police, and was someone trying to sabotage? Were they not? Again, I wasn't involved in the company at this point, frankly, like none of my business, but for whatever reason, that show did not go off as planned. Didn't even have any rings if you go back, or didn't even have any ropes rather. If you go back and watch the first VXS show since the relaunch, they call it No Justice, No Peace. No ropes in this abandoned UFC gym next to an abandoned Chinese buffet, started 4 hours late. But despite all that, still a hell of a show. I mentioned JTG Engage didn't happen, but JTG wrestled Brian Cage, and that was an incredible opener that they had. Some great deathmatch action. Alex Zane and Eli Everfly and Facade had this amazing 3-way dance, which is like amazing considering the fact that there were no ropes. It's like these are flippy, high-flying cruiserweight guys, and ropes are kind of integral to that. And they somehow made it happen despite that. Just top to bottom, a tremendous card, despite all the setbacks. And I think like from day one, from the get, even just as a fan who was in no way involved in pro wrestling at this point, getting the opportunity, well, involved in pro wrestling, but not from like a behind the scenes working unit standpoint, to see what they were able to pull off despite all that adversity, to still maintain that vision and put on a great show for the fans who stuck around. I was like, wow, this is something special. And indeed that was confirmed right, kind of continuing on, growing from there, getting ropes, getting proper venues, running WrestleMania weekend and that being the success it did. And eventually, moving to the West Coast and going across the country, and me being able to be a part of that. It's just really, really cool. And to kind of see that from the ground up and now say that I'm a part of it in like a very substantial way, I like to think is very, very strange, but very, very cool. Just even thinking about the timeline of it, that it was really only a little over a year ago that I was going to that first show as a fan, and less than a year ago between that first show and that first opportunity I mentioned I had at the Party All the Time bootleg pre-show in August. It's just, that's again my very long-winded way of saying that it's very surreal in the best, most amazing possible way. Yeah.
No, yeah. I mean, the way that professional wrestling brings a lot of people together. It brings, fans of the current product, past product, or, just of any product together. When I went over to VXS over in the recent show that they had, which is The World Is Yours, it was just crazy. The energy, the action, the feeling that you had inside that building, which was a relatively small building over in Baldwin Park. It was just awesome to feel that energy and connection.
Well, I mean, and I will say that's what's so special about VXS. There's a lot in today's day and age. From WWE Network to AEW to Impact to Ring of Honor to MLW to New Japan to IWTV and the great wealth of independent professional wrestling. There's a lot of professional wrestling and a lot of really good professional wrestling. Right. Very, very easy to access, kind of at the click of a finger. But what I think is so special about VXS and what's kind of sets us apart in so many ways from all the other admittedly terrific professional wrestling on the indies out there is that vision and that vibe that you were talking about. It's not just great athletes. Mm-hmm. Yes, there are, believe me, but it's that real vision of something so unique and so special. And if it sounds like I'm having a hard time putting it into words, it's because it's so sort of cool and unique that it can even be hard to articulate. But I mean, like, where else are you going to have these young up and comers like a Marcus Mathers, like you mentioned, on the same show as a legend like Too Cold Scorpio, on the same show as a TV wrestler like Joey Janela or a Brian Cage, women's wrestling, high flying wrestling, tango wrestling, anything and everything, all presented through that unique lens of the Trap House Fight Club. It's just, it's fucking cool, man. Like it sounds cliche to say, but it's like, it's sick. Like it belongs on Adult Swim. It's the aesthetic and the vibe are unlike anything else. I'm getting pumped up just talking about it.
Yeah, I mean, that's what this pursuing your career, especially at someone like my age, for example, because I'm turning 23 actually. Either A, when this comes out, I turned 23 already, or B, this is going to come out before that. And I'm going to turn
happy birthday, happy early birthday, happy belated birthday.
Right? Well, it's on the 24th. It's on the 24th of this
so,
recording in January.
I already dated it with the alley catch thing, so
No, but no, it's awesome just to have that feeling because it reminds you of why you're doing what you want to do.
Right. No, 100%. I mean, being involved in any capacity, I was part of LA Fights this past weekend, was lucky to be a part of Top Rope Promotions here back home a few weeks before that. I think it's safe to say this because this is coming out a little later. I have Chaotic Wrestling coming up in a week or so, some real fun stuff around here. So, I mean, no matter where I'm getting the opportunity to live the dream, as you called it, is great. But especially getting to do it at the level of a place like VXS and with a vision like VXS, it's insurmountably cool. And also like props to them for giving me the faith to do it and to christen me, as you said, the voice of violence, which is still the coolest thing ever to me. Because like, again, I'm someone who I said started a little over 6 months ago and is compared to some of the great hungry people out there, so inexperienced. But the fact that they're willing to let me not only be a part of it, but in such a substantial way, and that they have that faith in me is very, very cool. And that does not go unnoticed or unappreciated at all.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, when it comes to Jordan Cassel, you're doing so much in so little time. And with that actually said, I mean, like, how do you feel just knowing that you're doing so much in so little time?
Yeah, I mean, it's very crazy. There's a quote somewhere, and I'm probably butchering it. I don't even know who it's from. A movie, but I do not know, honestly, off the top of my head. But it's some amalgamation of like, it might have been a tweet for all I know, but it's some amalgamation of like, we spend so much time like wishing for something and dreaming for something and wanting something more than anything else. And then we finally get there, and immediately it's on to the next thing. And and we don't even take any time to appreciate or revel in the fact that we finally made it where we've been dreaming for so long. It's automatically on to the next thing. And I think that's not a completely unhealthy mindset, in the sense that like, you don't want to rest on your laurels. You want to always try to be better. You want to always try to shoot for the stars. You want to always try to get to that next level. And I don't want to undersell that or take away from that at all. But I think at the same time, like it's so important to stop and smell the roses and think like, a year ago, I would have killed to be doing the kind of stuff that I am right now, you know, to be working with the kind of people that I'm getting the chance to work alongside with the promotions. At the promotions, I'm getting the chance to work alongside them with, to do it so regularly, to do it with people like Chris Kloss or Eli Everfly or Pollo Del Mar, or Dave Marquez, or X-Pac, Sean Waltman, whoever you want to say, like, to be able to say that I'm doing that within less than a year of actually being involved. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. Actually being involved in the business it's immeasurably cool, and it's very surreal. And I think that kind of like imposter syndrome kind of thing can creep in at certain points. But to really just stop and be like, no, this is what you wanted for so long, and you've put in the work, and you're here, and that's awesome. And don't try to think about why is it happening, or, you know, when is it going to end, and let that insecurity and that anxiety. I'm a very anxious person, but to not let that anxiety kind of get the best of you, and to just be like, you know what, it's happening, and it's fucking awesome, and let's enjoy the ride while we can. So
that's an awesome mindset. I mean, that actually resonates so much with, I think, a lot of people. I mean, we, you know, especially with the pandemic, the kind of the good break that we had for a while. And then of course, you know, what's happening right now. I mean, I think it's, you know, to attest to what you said, I mean, it's, you know, just enjoy the ride, you know. It's always, we don't really think about it a lot. We really don't think about, you know, we think about kind of the negatives more than negatives, like, oh, this is happening. Oh, this is happening on the news. This is happening at my work, or whatever the case may be. But, you know, we really don't look at like, you know, like I'm doing this now, like I'm doing this now, and I'm, you know, with family, and, you know, doing this, doing that. Like, I think if we focus more on the positives, even if it's hard to do, which I understand it is hard to do. So don't come at me and say like, oh, it's not easy to do. I know it's not easy to do, but as long as we try our best to focus on that, I think that's what motivates us to keep on pushing, to keep on going towards where we want to go.
Yeah, and just enjoy it, as tough as life can be, to kind of take a step back and be like, you know, it's not all bad. There is so much cool, great, awesome stuff to appreciate. Absolutely.
Yeah. And one thing I do want to mention as well is that, of course, again, before we mentioned on the air, you are a college student. And one of those things, this is just kind of a question coming from the college student perspective. And that is, you know, with the things that you're doing now and also managing an education, I mean, sadly now more than ever kind of online, you know, how is that like manageable process? I think that's what I'm trying to ask. Like, how do you manage it?
I will tell you, man, it's not always easy. You know, I've had many a times where I've vented to friends or family members or whatever it is, and just been like, especially in the last, you know, 6 months or so, when the wrestling stuff has kind of started to pop off more and more. Talking to them about like, man, like this wrestling stuff's finally happening, but like I feel like I can't focus on it entirely because I'm doing the college thing. And like, yeah, like I want to be smart and be responsible and get the college education, but like at the end of the day, you don't really necessarily need that for wrestling, for what I'm going to go into. And like, that's not an actual qualification. And like, am I wasting time doing this? Am I wasting my youth doing this? Blah, 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 blah. But I think like more than anything else, I think I've realized, especially since the pandemic, especially since coming back to campus post-pandemic, is as important as the educational piece of college obviously is. And like, that is totally 100% a part of it, a big part of it, a major part of it. I'm not trying to undersell that for a second, but I feel like the college experience is also so much about kind of growing into yourself as a person and growing up in a lot of ways. And I'm not sure if I would have that if I just went straight into the wrestling stuff and like did that while also living at home or while also moving directly into an apartment. I think there's some real, like, as cliche as it can sound, some real character development personally, like personal character development, that can be gleaned elsewhere, but is especially gained from that time in college, whether that's living in a dorm room the size of this computer lab with 3 other people, or whether that's having to think about managing money in a different way or having to make it to class on time or whatever it is. I think as much as the actual textbook in-class education is important, that college experience is a part of that. So I'm not sure if that completely answers your question.
No. I mean, I think that does, because, like you mentioned before, it's all about character development. And it's, now realizing, for being in college for, so I'm not proud to say this, but kind of over 3 years, it's true. Cause like, I look at myself when I first started college, back in 2017, and, I look at myself now, I mean, like, a lot of things have changed, but I think I've also learned as well is that it got me more experience when it comes to, the field that I'm going in, and then trust me, if I could go to probably any resume now and say, yeah, I have over 5 years of experience, more like 6 or 7, but it's true,
Well, again, I mean, we talked about VXS, just staying on them. Like, they have a pretty dedicated team in Jersey. Talk about MLJ, talk about Larry Legend, talk about Julius Smokes, some terrific talent there. And I told you I got the initial opportunity this past summer in Jersey. I'm not sure if that opportunity, had I just stuck around and stayed in Mass or, continued to commute to Jersey, if that same opportunity would have been there, just because they had that built-in team. Luckily, again, talk about timing and kind of the universe working in these mysterious ways. They happened to have their first California show about a month after I went back to school back in California. And I would have had no reason to be in California if not for going out there for school and going back to school out there. And so I think things like that, it can't be understated, the importance of right place, right time, and kind of everything happening for a reason. And though there are moments, I'm not going to lie to you, where I kind of will shrug my shoulders and doubt it and be like, what are we doing here? I think taking the path that I did, in a lot of ways, I feel like for people involved in wrestling, maybe less so on like a broadcast, the broadcast side of things, but even still the road kind of less traveled, I think, was ultimately, the right choice. And if nothing else, I got some great friends and some great memories that I wouldn't trade for the world. So yeah.
And I do want to talk about, you talk about California a lot. The one I do want to talk about, and of course you were on 2 volumes of it, was LA Fights. How special was it to have that first show? Because of course it was a huge thing. GCW had JCW, which was Jersey Championship Wrestling, which was their partner promotion. But then they opened up LA Fights. And boy, when I looked at this card, there were so many people, kind of growing up around the Southern California wrestling scene. There's so many people that I've known, from like Brandon Gatson to Jack Cartwheel to so many people that were there. And even people from the Las Vegas scene coming in, like Sandra Moon. And then you also have people like Dark Sheik coming in. Like, what was that first show like from a backstage perspective, or just as an experience of your own?
Yeah, I mean, so GCW, in a lot of ways, I think, really like, I don't save my life sounds too cliche, but like kept me sane. Let's say that during the pandemic, because obviously March of 2020, everything shut down. Went home. There was no wrestling anywhere. There was, WWE and AEW at the empty arena, but there was no indie wrestling. There was no wrestling that people could go to. And from July of 2020, which was what's it called? GCW Homecoming, the first one in 2020, all through summer of 2021. I traveled from Massachusetts to Atlantic City as a fan about bi-monthly, I'd say once every other month, to these GCW shows in Atlantic City. I had a really dedicated, great group of friends, group of boys. It's so dumb. It was the summer of Among Us that it was started, so the word was a hot button issue. We could call ourselves the Sus, and that stuck for God knows what reason. But it was me, my boy DJ Tony D, my guy JNav, John R.NES on Twitter, and our buddy Galen, who's very old and doesn't have Twitter. We knew all of them from Beyond Wrestling, a great local indie close to all of us that we met through. And with them, every other month would travel to these GCW shows in Atlantic City in the Carousel Room. And besides that, I'd be a total good boy and mask up and social distance and not do anything. But for better or worse, every other month, those were kind of when I would let loose and go into the wild a little bit and experience these shows, still with safety precautions and
right.
and hand sanitization and masks and social distancing and all that. But for a very long time, that was like the only wrestling that I watched and was a part of. And for someone who, for the better part of the last half decade, has been fortunate enough to attend, a few shows a month, from big arena shows to indie shows, and have that be such a form of escapism and community for me. I was so lost without it when the pandemic hit. And GCW, for all intents and purposes, provided that when nowhere else could and would. Those shows are some of the most special memories of my later teenhood into early adulthood. Just really, really special. And like I said, kept me sane. And so through that, kind of kept a good rapport with the GCW crew, with Brett. And when the opportunity sort of arose, LA Fights began. I reached out to him and I said, hey, I've done this with VXS. I've done this with a few other places. I would love to sort of be a part of it in any sort of on mic capacity. Not only because of what a great career opportunity that is, but because I feel in so many ways indebted to Brett and sort of what as corny as it sounds, the family that he cultivated there. And like I said, kept me sane for all that time. So I was not expecting anything. And so to have him kind of invite me on board and ask me to be a part of it, co-hosting both volumes with Poyo, and then most recently, as I mentioned, doing commentary with a crazy cavalcade of names, is just, talk about surreal. We've used that word a couple of times. Just absolutely crazy to see, myself standing in a ring with GCW turnbuckles, is just insane, absolutely insane. Just very, very cool to be a part of, and a very kind of cool full circle moment after, like I said, those voyages to Atlantic City that were so instrumental to my late 2020s into early 2021. Incredible shows, top to bottom, for free on YouTube. Both of them are, which is insane. The quality they're providing, just awesome pro wrestling. I'm not even saying that from like I work for them and like I want to push the thing I'm doing and like be a good company man. That is true, but I also just think like as a fan, like go back and watch Sander Moon and Bad Dude Tito. Go back and watch Dark Sheik versus Sander Moon, or Dark Sheik versus Kevin Blackwood, or Nick Wayne versus Titus Alexander, or any of these matches. I mean, this is top tier professional wrestling, and as someone who, as you said, was kind of exposed to the California Indies for so long. I think I saw, as many other people did, what a wealth of untapped potential it was, and how it was the sort of best kept secret, and this diamond in the rough so many of these athletes were, and to finally see them have the platform and the clout, for lack of a better term, of a game changer, with this great new brand of LA Fights is just immeasurably cool. I'm getting jazzed up just talking about it. I had some of the most fun I've ever had the first 2 volumes. I can't wait for February for volume 3.
Oh yeah. I mean, like LA Fights is truly, and I know I'm probably going to keep repeating this, and no, sadly, I'm not sponsored yet. However, but no, I mean, it's awesome. I mean, I saw the first 2 shows, and I like I said, I barely got exposed to the indie scene about maybe 2018, so about a couple of years. But like seeing these names and seeing like how big California is on a professional wrestling scene wise. Like you're talking about like people that should be signed to any company. Like you're talking about so many people.
I mean, I don't know if it's because for the longest time, like I said, I grew up in Massachusetts and spent so much time there, the majority of my life here. Maybe because that was my first exposure to the Indies. I don't know, but I feel like so much of the shine is rightfully so given to the more northern part of the Indies. And there's a great wealth of talent here, and that's terrific. But some of these guys from the West Coast, it's like talk about hidden gems, like guys like, a Titus Alexander or an Andy Brown or a Dark Sheik or S4TB or whatever you want to say. Like these guys are as good as some of the top indie stars, as good as some of the people you see on television getting signed to NXT or AEW or whatever it is. And it's like, man, like what a shame that for the longest time they were overlooked, but how cool that now with LA Fights, and obviously not just LA Fights, there are plenty of other terrific indie promotions, but LA Fights is the one I work for. So just to see that shine on these very well-deserved athletes is just, it's awesome. It's awesome.
See, Jordan, I give you all the credit because you did something special with LA Fights. I mean, you were a host, but also did behind the scenes commentary. How does it feel to be in that position? Because I know within the first volume, I believe it was the first volume or it was the second volume. I'm not too sure, but I know there was a lot of change in commentary. But what was that like being on commentary, being like, whether that was through LA Fights or VXS, like what's it like behind the microphone when it comes to the commentary scene?
So for the first volume of LA Fights, I strictly did the hosting thing with Puyo. And for this past one, volume 2, I was also expecting to just do that. And then day of, about 45 minutes before, I was grabbed and told, "Hey, Jordan, you're on commentary for about half the show." And it was like, oh, all right, let's go. And me, I, especially around stuff that I care about and I'm passionate about, and I'm passionate about nothing more than wrestling and my roles in it. I am a total planner. So I'm someone who will like reach out to people weeks and months in advance and get like pages upon pages upon pages of notes. And that's just how I've operated. And so to not have that opportunity when there were 45 minutes before go time, it was like, man, like as Matt Cardona says, like always ready, like into the shark infested waters, like jumping into the deep end. I didn't know what to expect, but like I feel, without tooting my own horn, very, very proud and happy with how it turned out. Huge testament, huge shout out to, again, I mentioned briefly before, but all my dance partners that day, whether it was Deshaun's 2 Cents, Sean Scoville, Hot Tub Guy, great friend of mine, Puyo Del Mar, my co-host, the legendary X-Pac, the legendary Dave Marquez. All the credit in the world goes to them for kind of carrying me and helping me through it. But no, man, that was super cool. Talk about a pleasant surprise. That was not something I was at all expecting to do, but was more than thrilled to be a part of it. I love commentary, man. I'll tell you what, like I never like intended on doing commentary. For me, growing up, talking about this dream I had, it was always ring announcing. It was always ring announcing. It was always like, I want to be behind the microphone. Like I want to be like a Justin Roberts or a Tony Chimmel or a Howard Finkel or whoever it is. That was always how I kind of envisioned it in my head. Sure enough, this first VXS opportunity, it was for commentary. And it was like, well, not exactly what I've envisioned, but still an opportunity to be behind a microphone at a wrestling show. Close enough. I'm not going to say no. And I've really, really been very surprised at how much I've enjoyed it. And I don't want to say how easy it's been, because it's definitely not easy, but sort of how comfortable it's felt, if that makes any sense. And gotten some very positive feedback in it, which is awesome. And it's definitely something that I want to continue doing as much as possible. Still not opposed to ring announcing. Have several gigs coming up with VWE, Venue Wrestling Entertainment, doing that. Always very much, ready, willing, and able to try on that side of things. Yeah, no, I like to say, people always ask, like, what do you do in wrestling? I say anything that involves wearing a suit and holding a microphone. That's me. So if that's commentary, if that's ring announcing, if that's interviewing, if that's managing, I'm your guy. Anything that's not actually, going in there and bumping and getting hurt and messing up the face, I'm game for. Yeah, no, commentary is awesome, and it's such a joy to sort of fall into it in so many ways.
So you talked about a lot of your inspirations about going into ring announcing, like you mentioned before. What was the thing that really ignited you to say, okay, I want to do this for the rest of my life?
Yeah, I mean, okay, so I mentioned, I think, that I started watching wrestling late 2009. The first match ever, my dad was watching SmackDown, and it was Batista versus Chris Jericho, and I just crawled into bed with him to say goodnight, and I was like, what is this? And he was explaining kind of what it was and what wrestling was, and I just think from that moment there, it was like, wow, this is amazing. And just from there, I was hooked. I don't remember a second after that I wasn't tuning in every Monday and Friday. And whenever they came to the Garden in Boston, I wasn't going to shows there. And I wasn't, buying the action figures and buying the toy belts and buying the shirts and whatever else it was. Yeah, I just think it really was love at first sight. It wasn't any one terrific particular thing. It wasn't like, oh my God, I saw this. I saw, Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker. I saw a crazy Extreme Rules match. It was just some innocuous throwaway pre-tape B-show SmackDown main event that had probably been seen 15 times before. But I think there's something strangely cosmically beautiful about that, is that it was pro wrestling in its rawest form. It wasn't the greatest hits. It wasn't any of the razzle dazzle. It was just pure, almost to a detriment, talking about 2009 WWE, not exactly a fondly remembered period. It is for me, because I have those kind of nostalgic rose-colored glasses, but historically not really thought of as one of the best periods in that company's history. But I just fell in love, and the rest is history, as they say.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of weird how some people ask us what got you into this, right? Typical podcast question too.
Sure.
But I mean, it's those little things. For me, for example, it was just one match with Eddie Guerrero and Brock Lesnar, No Way Out 2004.
Oh, but see, even that's a big moment. That's one that they replay. Yeah. That's on the DVDs,
But see, my family grew up as a wrestling fan family anyway. So we had tapes upon tapes about these old Raw's War episodes and all that. And I was just kind of curious, because I was like, okay. Because at the time when I barely kind of clicked, I was about 4 or 3 years old. I'm like, okay, Brock Lesnar's champion. Okay, that's that's happening. So one of the things I do want to mention as well is, is the fact that, there's a lot of people, especially our age, when it comes to around our 20s and stuff like that are wanting to pursue it, but they don't know how to, or that they have so much experience, they don't know where to go forward with. My question to you is that, what's your advice to people, that want to pursue a passion, that want to, do something, but they don't feel like they have the capability of doing it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's necessarily one good, right, or true answer. It obviously depends on who you are and what that passion is, and even if it is pro wrestling and announcing or whatever else. I think like everyone's different. Everyone's situation is different. So I'm not necessarily sure if there's one true answer. But I will be the first to admit I'm still kind of figuring that out in a lot of ways myself. But like, I would say my biggest thing is just like put yourself out there, because the worst anyone can ever say is no or no response at all. No one is going to care enough to shoot some, no promoter is going to care enough to send you some big message about how pathetic it is that you asked and blah, blah, blah. And if they do, then that reflects much more on them than it does you. You don't probably even want to work there in the first place. But no, I mean, I'll be the first to say, like I mentioned, kind of VXS was my big break for all intents and purposes. But like hardly the first place that I reached out to, and the first place that I kind of entertained with the idea and said like, hey, I've always been interested in doing this. Like, can I have a shot? Hard. Like I got the door slammed in my face, or no response, or a polite no from countless places and countless people. And just kept pushing and kept being like, no, this is all I've ever wanted to do. I'm going to make this happen one way or another. And just like being persistent and being willing to hear no as much. Because it's a very easy thing to say, right? Like, oh, the worst thing someone can say is no. But like, it sucks and it hurts and it's crushing. And even as someone like me who's still blessed with all these amazing opportunities that I've been blessed with, all the time I'll reach out to places and get left unread or hear a no. And that's still fucking crushing. Right, but at the same time, it can't stop you from putting yourself out there and still pushing. You just got to still, no matter what, still go for it and push and push and push and reach out to whoever, because you will be surprised at who will respond. I talk not all the time, but I have this story about how my current voicemail is the actual voice actor from the old Star Fox games for the N64. And the way that happened is I had some silly little fan film, whatever you want to call it, fanfic thing that involved a bunch of Nintendo characters when I was like 12 making YouTube videos. And I found this guy's website and email, and I was just like, you know what, let's see if he'd do it. Like, there's probably not a good chance at all, but like, why not? And I reached out to the dude, Mike Johnson, I believe his name is. It's horrible that I don't remember. I do not have a great memory, if you can tell, but reached out to him, and sure enough, he was willing to do it and record these silly little lines. I have not listened to it back. It's probably awful. And sent back like a little like voicemail greeting along with it. And I've kept it ever since, as corny as it is, because it's a reminder of like, man, when you reach out and you just go for it, you never know who's gonna respond and where you're gonna find that success. And I mean, it's the classic thing, again, as cliche as it sounds, but like, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So just take every shot. And that's, again, still something that I need to remind myself of every now and again, but all of the greatest things that I've, been fortunate enough to find in this short life of mine have been thanks to that mentality. So I guess I would say that's my biggest thing.
No, it's a beautiful thing, and I appreciate that message. And for those who are watching or listening, that's some advice. Seriously, that's some beautiful advice, man. So I thank you for that. Before I ask you this last question, first and foremost, I want to say thank you so much for taking your time, broadcasting live from the good old Massachusetts over at Chapman University. And I do appreciate you taking the time. So I want to say thank you for that. If you want to catch this man, you can catch this man. I don't know what that was for, but you can catch this man at LA Fights, Volume 3, which they do have a double header as far as this recording is. Yes. So if you want to enjoy some professional wrestling, hopefully it's still on.
Everything's getting canceled these days. It sucks. But not that yet. That is still happening.
But if it isn't, hey, go check it out. Go check out LA Fights. You'll find some great California independent wrestling talent, and even some from Las Vegas, even some that you won't even know. But check them out. Go say hi to Jordan if you want to. But my final question is, question to you, Jordan, is this. So you made an Instagram post about a while ago. Either it was on an Instagram post or it was on a Twitter post, but it was actually a picture of when you were a little kid, and you had mentioned how long you've wanted this. You wanted this dream for so long. I believe, if I remember correctly, it was you in a little suit and tie with a little microphone, and shows you now doing your job, doing your dream job. So my question to you is this: now, looking back from your beginnings to now, are you proud of your story? Are you proud of what you've made your career of thus far and what you're going to do in the future?
100%, 100%. I think, like I said before, it's very easy to get lost in the chase and in the you got to be better, you got to be bigger, you're not doing enough, push. And it's not entirely a bad thing, but at the same time, take a minute to stop and be like, wow, you've worked at some of the places you've worked at, rubbed elbows with some of the people you've rubbed elbows with. You've already done so much, and just go back and be appreciative and think about, as you were saying, that picture of of my 10, 11-year-old self, whatever it is, to think about kind of time traveling or in some type of hypothetical situation, being able to talk to that kid and be like, man, you got to call a pro wrestling match with X-Pac, or you got to ring announce in the same building as Ric Flair. Just some of this stuff is mind-boggling. And so to answer the question, yes, very proud, but even more so very excited for what the future has to hold.
Well, Jordan, I do want to say one more time, thank you so much. If people want to follow Jordan Cassel, where can they find this legendary person?
Oh, man. Well, Twitter and Instagram, same handle, at Jordan W_S, JORDANW_S. Same on both Twitter and Instagram. It's crazy to me because I made both of those handles when I was 12 or 13. And you would think that social media handles made by a 12 or 13-year-old would be much kind of cringier looking back, but I think it's pretty good. I've stuck with it, pretty professional, pretty simple. So I'm very pleasantly surprised that I had the kind of foresight to do that. But no, Jordan W_S on Twitter and Instagram. That's where you'll find everything, both kind of updates and blogs about my trials and tribulations as a suit-wearing mic man in the world of professional wrestling, and also all sorts of other ridiculous, inane shit posting. So please follow me there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jordan. And I got to do an outro. So here we go. If you guys could do me a favor, click the like button, hit subscribe, put those post notifications so you don't have to miss another episode of your story. We're starting out 2022 strong, guys. I mean, we have so many big guests, including Jordan. So thank you so much, Jordan, for being on one more time. And until next time, I guess I got to do this outro again, since I do it every single episode. We'll see you guys in the next episode of your story.
Oh, I like that. Thank you for having me.